When you realize why you're here, turn whatever challenge, whatever struggle into your testimony, because we all go through things, we all go through challenges, but sometimes we go through them for the betterment of us and the betterment of others around us. So anytime, pain or struggle, I shout it to the mountaintop, because guess what? I made it.
Hey everyone, this is Rod Cate, and welcome to this week's episode of Rocket Motivation. First, I'd like to thank our sponsor, Gat Creek, a furniture manufacturer designing and creating incredible wood furniture, all in Berkeley Springs, West Virginia. Visit gatcreek.com. This week's guest started from humble beginnings here in Mobile, Alabama. She is a product of the Orange Grove Projects and grew up with a strong influence by her mom, who was a school teacher, and her grandmother. A college scholarship, graduating from business school, and traveling around the world has given this week's guest the education and experience to live her best life. She has come full circle and presently works as the Director of Institutional Advancement at Bishop State Community College, where her office overlooks the former Orange Grove Projects. She's going to tell her story of experiencing life and her resiliency, tenacity, and working through adversity in getting to where she is now in her life. Sherrica Davis-Hunt, welcome to Rocket Motivation.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Well, thank you for coming on the show. So let's do this, Sherrica. So
Okay.
to kind of tell us where you are now in your life, family, career-wise, what you do.
Okay.
So go ahead and just catch us up.
So right now, I am currently the wife of a school principal. My husband, Marshall, is principal at Collins Roads Elementary. I am the mom of 4 beautiful children, ages 19, 11, 6, and 3. So we have a very busy household. Career-wise, I work as Director of Institutional Advancement at Bishop State Community College, where I oversee the Bishop State Foundation, which is the philanthropic arm of the college, and as well as all philanthropic initiatives of Bishop State. I am currently a doctoral student at Alabama State University, studying to obtain my PhD in education, policy, and law.
Well, let me ask you that, getting your PhD, why did you decide to do that?
I decided to get my PhD because this is my first time in higher education. And so I never thought that I would go into education. And so everything always goes back full circle. With my mom being an educator, I often steered away from it. And so when the opportunity presented itself, I felt that I needed my PhD to leverage my career in higher education. I have a strong interest now in policy and creating policies for the advancement of students, for the advancement of minorities. And I felt that, it would be a great platform for me to position myself to learn more and add value to my institution.
I got you. Okay, let's go back. Let's talk about your childhood, kind of, growing up in Mobile. So, tell us about that time, your influences, and just kind of what your childhood was all about.
Okay, my childhood was a very great childhood, looking back on it. So I grew up with the influences of my grandmother. Her name is Madeira, and as well as my mom and my aunt. So I grew up in a very strong, dominated female household where we were told to get your education, because if a man ever decided that he wanted to walk out the door, you can tell him goodbye and to kiss your behind, because you have it yourself. You can make your own money. You can make your own decisions. And so my grandmother was just a way with people. Now, she would tell you off, but everyone loved her for her honesty. She was born with polio. So she was handicapped all of her life, 8th grade education, but she made sure that all 3 of her kids received a higher education degree. So not having an education, but understanding the value and the importance of having an education was near and dear to her. My beginnings of just talking with people, she took every task to heart. So she was the person in church that will call individuals for choir rehearsal, and when the time went back or moved forward. So she was that person to notify you. And as we grew up, she made us do it. She said, here's this book. I need you to call these individuals and tell them that choir rehearsal is at this time. And looking back on it, when people say, oh, you don't have a problem in speaking to public and to different people, I look back at that was my training ground for talking with people, informing them. And so that was my beginning stages of working in business.
Right. The advice that you were given by your grandmother and your mom about get your education so you don't have to rely upon a man. I give my daughter that same advice too. It's important to have your own independence.
Exactly. My husband, when we moved to Abu Dhabi, he's a school principal, and so he went there to work in an Emirati school. And our daughter was 6 months old, and we decided that I would be a stay-at-home mother. And when I got there, everything was fine. So maybe after about 5 months, I was unhappy. And he didn't understand why. He said, why are you so unhappy? Aren't you living the American dream? Stay-at-home mom? I said, this is not my dream. I was taught to work. I was taught to provide for my husband spoils our entire family. He's a provider. That's what he prides himself in. But I also pride myself in being a provider as well.
Right. I mean, you want to, make your own way in the world. I know that, when you're married, and I've been married for quite a long time, but still there's that you want to do your own thing also.
Exactly.
You want to do something outside of just being a homemaker.
Exactly. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, because actually you work harder at home than what you would do at work. And I think many of us found that out during the pandemic when we were forced to stay at home and work at the same time. It's a very challenging job. So I don't judge anyone who decides to do that. But just for me, my upbringing, who I am as a person, and wanting to set that example for my daughter, the examples that were set before me. But my mom, being a biology teacher, and we went to school with her when she got her master's degree from the University of South Alabama. We sat in the back of the classroom as she was going to school. So having that as an example of being resilient and just having that education, I just couldn't let that go to waste and sit at home, even if it was in Abu Dhabi in paradise. I had to work.
Right. Well, and so, so you clearly do well in school because you get a full scholarship to Talladega College.
Yes. Talladega College was a great learning experience for me. Small liberal arts, HBCU, gained a lot of friendships there, and as well as a lot of experiences. In the first semester, I wanted to transfer to the University of Alabama because 2 of my best friends went there. And of course, all of the amenities were far better than Talladega. But what it provided me was a platform to elevate myself. Through Talladega, I took my first flight to D.C. I presented at the Society of Toxicology Conference. I got a chance to study under Dr. Susan T. Lard in pharmacology at the University of Chapel Hill. I studied under Dr. Splinter, who was the orthopedic surgeon at Vanderbilt. I got an opportunity to shadow doctors at the Mayo Clinic. So it provided me with just a world-class education and far better experiences than what individuals who gone to larger universities had.
Right. And based on what you just said on some of the things you were able to do,
yes,
you were on track to go to med school.
Exactly. I was a biology pre-med major.
Okay. But you decided not to. Why not?
I decided not to because, and this is why you have to listen to your intuition. So even in high school, I knew that I wanted to do something, but I couldn't articulate it. So when I told people I love working with people, right? They assume, or I like helping people. Oh, okay, well, go be a doctor. That's what doctors do. They help people. And so just staying with that narrative throughout high school, throughout college, and in my heart, I did not have an interest in any of that. Even Dr. Lord at the University of Chapel Hill, North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and studying in her lab, she said, Sherrica, you don't like this, do you? I said, no, I do not. She said, well, why don't you go and find what you like to do? And so at that time, I didn't have a sense of that because for 4 years, or 8 years when you include high school, I just had doctor ingrained in me to the point where I felt that if I were not a doctor, then nothing else mattered to that. So she called me out on it.
Well, I know you go get your MBA in New York.
Yes. St. John's University,
Right.
Tobin College of Business.
All right, and tell us about your trip to New York and what you go up there and what you don't have.
So I go to New York without a job, and I'm living in a duplex. A friend of mine had a godfather who owned a duplex. So his son lived on the bottom. I lived on the top floor. And so I thought I can easily get a job in retail or I can make it work. Negative. No one would hire me. No one. But his name was Monroe. He blessed me and he said, pay me back when you can. And so I hated New York in the beginning. I hated it. Girl from Alabama. It wasn't what I saw on TV initially. It was hard work, learning the train systems and learning the addresses. I would give a taxi driver the address, and he's like, what are the cross streets? I'm like, what do you mean? 3rd and 4th, 7 and 8? I'm like, I don't know. And so, but once I learned New York, I fell in love with it and got the opportunity to do an internship with the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene for the city of New York. And then through that opportunity, I landed with a financial analyst position on Wall Street by mistake, actually, or happenstance. I interviewed to be an assistant. The managing director, his assistant was out on leave for surgery, and they needed someone temporarily. So when I met with him, he said, you're going to school to get your MBA. Why do you want to be my assistant? And I said, I need a job. And he said, well, if you can bring your marketing skills to the plate, I can teach you everything you need to know about public finance. And there I was, girl, Mobile, Alabama's, working on Wall Street with the big boys.
Like you said, girl from Mobile. I mean, Mobile is not that large and it's not that small, but it's the 3rd largest city in Alabama,
Yes.
But it's not New York. And so, tell me about how that went from Mobile to Talladega. Now you're in New York. Kind of talk about how just, kind of being not really a small town girl, but somewhat in Mobile. Mm-hmm. And now you're in the big city. How did you handle that?
I would say it's all about having a vision. I knew from in elementary school that I wanted to live in New York. I didn't know why. I didn't know how I was going, but I felt in my heart that New York was a place where I would live one day. And I was always authentic to myself. One of my MBA colleagues would call me Catholic schoolgirl because I always, when I went to work, I wore my pearls because I'm a Southern girl and you wear pearls. And even, talking on the phone at the firm, like people will always stop when I would say, hi, how may I help you? And they're like, wait a minute, where are you from? I'm like, I'm from Alabama, like figures. Because you're polite and you're nice. So I always stayed true to myself. However, and that's a part of, I would say, my skill set is just adapting and being adaptable, and as well as always being a forever learner. The VP at the firm, we worked closely together, and I hated him at first. I hated him. And one day he said, Sherrica, he said, I don't want you to hate me, but this is the real world. And I would say I was accustomed to being Alabama smart, right, where I came from. So I had the 4.1 GPA. I was an Azalea Trailmate. So I thought I was top dog. And he was telling me, he said, no, like you're not. And you always have something to learn. And like we're friends to this day. He's my mentor. He always provides me a reference anywhere I go. But in learning that from him, that you're always a student. You always learn, and don't be offensive when someone tries to teach you. Be appreciative because they could not say anything at all.
Well, how did you handle that the first time when he tells you you're not the top dog? Basically, you may not be as smart as you think you are. How did you handle that?
Oh, my goodness. So we had like a little text war. And if you ever been to New York, there are certain pockets in the subway where reception would come in. So one day I left work. I was upset and I left work on time, but I didn't say goodbye. So he sends me this text and he's like, why didn't you say goodbye? And you should have come to me and asked me if I needed you to do anything. And I said, I'm going to let him have it when I get out the subway. And we ended up, going to get drinks one day. And he said, Sherrica, he said, I think that this debate between us is because you feel uncomfortable. And I did. It was a lot. I come from a biology world, and that ramp up to learning public finance and being on a desk with individuals who have worked in finance all of their lives, it was very challenging and tough. And so he said, you need to hone in on your skill set. And he said, your skill set is with people. He said, I know all about finance, but you know all about people. So we need to work together. And that's what we did. I could talk to anyone. I could get us in the door. I can get us a part of any bond issuance. And he had the knowledge to craft the deals. And so he said, own who you are. Like, you are a people's person, like, and own that. And don't worry about what you don't know, because you really don't have an interest in it. Right. Know a little bit, but own who you are.
Well,
that's what I did.
And you got to get out of your comfort zone a little bit.
Exactly.
And how important is that? I mean, as far as your development, or I guess really anybody's, for somebody to be able to get out of their comfort zone?
So I would say and encourage anyone to know who you are. And at that point in my life, I had no clue. I thought I did, but I didn't. So what I did was that I polled 5 individuals, people who were not judgmental, who weren't going to be my cheerleader in the corner like my mom or my brother. And I said, what is it that you see in me, right? Because we have these perceptions of who we are and how we and who we truly are. Right? So you're thinking you're top dog, and someone else is looking at you like, okay, I see the insecurities in you, and that's why you're acting that way. So the feedback that I got initially hurt, because everyone said, you're good with working with people. And in my mind, what the heck am I going to do with that? What does that even mean? Right?
Well, what does that even mean? It's like.
So, and like for me, I've been very blessed. Like I've have this transferable skill set, and it's just being adaptable, being resilient, being humble, to where when I walk in the room, I can sell you my skill set with no industry experience. So, working in Wall Street, no finance experience. I went back to Atlanta. I worked for a startup IT company, no IT experience. In Abu Dhabi, a new country where I was told you will not find a job for to be an expat, to be the spouse of an educator. And I was able to find one. And moving back to Mobile, working in nonprofit, had no nonprofit experience. Now in higher education, had no higher education experience. So I always tell people, own who you are, own your craft, own your skill set, and you can walk in any door and sell yourself, and you're not pretending to be someone that you're not. So I'm not pretending to know all about higher education. That's why I'm going back to school to obtain my PhD, because I want to learn more, because I love it. But I'm not pretending to the president or anyone else that I know all be all. I know my skill set, and so that's where I bring value.
Coming from Mobile, you go to New York, you go to Atlanta, you go to Abu Dhabi. One thing that it seems a kind of a common thread here is that you're not afraid to take on a challenge.
Right.
Where did you get that from?
I got that from my mom, and being fearless. And, she always, taught my brother, my sister, and I, like, go for your dreams. And I tell my husband, we do an 80-year-old test, right? And I say, if I'm blessed enough to be 80 years old, rocking in my chair on the porch, watching our grandkids, I want to be able to say, I did it all, even if I failed at it or it didn't work. I never want to say, I wonder if that would have worked out. I wonder, what would have happened if this would have worked out. And so, knowing that, that God has my back, and also knowing Kerry Washington said that, God gives you 3 answers. He says, yes, not now, or no, I have something greater. And so in understanding that with every move that I make, that if it's not necessarily what I thought it was, then guess what? It wasn't meant to be. If I didn't get the job, I probably wouldn't have liked it anyway. So it was a blessing that I didn't get it. And sometimes, you want things and God is protecting you from what you don't know. And so, that caused me to be fearless and being true to myself. Even going to New York, no one wanted me to go. not even my mom, not my brother. Everyone was trying to talk me out of it. And I said, I'm going. Because I'm that person, when you tell me that I can't do something, that drives me more. I love it.
Right. Well, and so let me ask this, because I think this is very interesting about, you said the 80-year-old test.
Yes.
Okay, I've never heard that before, but that's interesting. And it's like, you're looking back and you say, well, did I give it my all? Did I do what I could do? Did I get the most out of my life?
Exactly.
That's basically what you're saying.
Exactly.
And so, and I think that's incredibly important because, and I think it's great advice to give to especially to young people, is that we only get one life.
Yes.
You can get into a comfort zone and you can not do stuff.
Exactly.
Or you can push yourself. And then you get to the end of your life, you just don't want to have any regrets.
Exactly. And my thing is, too, leaving a legacy, having my office overlook the housing projects, where my grandmother was born, where my mom was born, and them taking the necessary steps to grow and improve. So now they passed the baton to me. And so now I have to be an example for my daughter and the women in my family. And so that's what drives me in, creating that generational levels of success. We are women that succeed. We are women that grow. And so I hope that my daughter, she takes the baton and go higher than me, just as I have done, with my mom and with my grandmother and my aunt. And so, always strive for greatness and greatness at your level. Our greatnesses may not be the same. And so it's not for one of us to look down at each other, well, I'm this or I'm that, but what is in you? What inspires you? What is your vision for yourself?
And you've had an interesting life. You've had a lot of experiences, and you're not even 40 years old yet.
No.
What advice would you give to young people on getting the most out of life?
Someone once told me, eat the fish and spit out the bones. Take whatever you can in this life, and anything negative, toss it out the window. And be positive, stay true to yourself, have a vision for yourself, and just always be authentic. And that will allow you to grow. That would allow you in any room when you're true to yourself, because when you're not, people have these perceptions of you that may not be true, and you have to live this lie, and you have to live up to what people assume you to be. And, that's not the way. You become unhappy, right? And so a point in my life right now with my son, he was born blind. We had a miracle. He can see now, through prayers and through surgeries. By the grace of God, my son can see. And so I've seen a miracle happen in front of my eyes, with my son, who's 3 years old now. So if God can do that, he can do anything. And, be happy, be content, but always continue to grow.
Like I just said, you're not even 40 yet. What do you want out of your life?
What do I want out of my life? Again, just leaving that legacy for my daughter and my hopefully future granddaughters, and establishing greatness, and not even within my family, for even, outside, women, when I working at the college, talking to young, girls about just striving for success, having your own, creating that generational wealth, that generational stance for legacy, and just being authentic to who you are and being resilient, and as well as being humble. Carla Harris works for Morgan Stanley, is a big-time investment banker, African-American woman in New York. And she always says, you set the thermometer when you walk in the room. You don't let anyone tell you you're hot, you cold. You walk into a room and you set it. So, sometimes people say, oh, I am adaptable, but I adapt to my own settings.
Being a role model, that's important to you, isn't it?
It really is. It really is. That's why I'm coming out with the book, Networking and Lattes, and teaching. It's for everyone, but I really want to target young females who are in their 20s like me, lost, that, be intentional about relationships. And that's what life is about, managing those relationships. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. But again, you eat that fish and you spit out the bones. Like, what was good about the fish, right? The bones were nasty or hard or whatever, but there were some good pieces in that fish. And so focus on that. Don't focus on the negative. So just teaching them that, build those relationships, network and tell people. A lot of times we don't articulate what we want and who we are. And so you get up from the table and you're thinking that that person is not interested, and they're thinking, I have no idea what she wanted,
Right.
So being direct and being intentional and honest.
And is that what the networking and lattes, that's what the book's about
Yes,
being intentional?
being intentional, like owning your power in networking. So not networking in the sense of these are the things that you need to do, because we all have different personalities. I'm a very shy person. People don't think that because of what I do for a living, but I'm very introverted. I'm very shy. So even today when I walk into rooms, I'm like playing Beyonce in my car to get, to get my mind together, because I still get nervous. I still sweat. I still, have fear or apprehensions of approaching certain people. But how to navigate and work through that, but not changing who you are as a person, is what I do for my job. But I don't have to become that in order to get the job done and to be impactful and effective.
So your book, Networking and Lattes, when's it coming out?
So it's in the fall. So right now, just still just working out some things, but I'm looking to launch it in the fall, and I hope that it blesses someone. It's not a spiritual-based book, but I am a very spiritual person. So I do base a lot of my philosophies on the Bible and on the teachings of God. So I hope that, it inspires individual and it blesses individual. And like I said, I'm not a preacher by any means. So I don't want anyone to think that, she's a goody two shoes, but that's just, who I am in my life currently, who I'm evolving into. I'm a woman of God.
What advice would you give, to the listeners on how to deal with adversity?
One thing in dealing with adversity is going in silence, meditate, and knowing why you're here. I think that's the most important thing. When you realize why you're here, turn whatever challenge, whatever struggle into your testimony, because we all go through things, we all go through challenges, but sometimes we go through them for the betterment of us and the betterment of others around us. So anytime, pain or struggle, I shout it to the mountaintop, because guess what? I made it. And if I can make it, you can too.
Has everything been successful, or have you had some failures that you've dealt with?
Oh my goodness, yes. I've been fired 3 or 4 times and working in Atlanta, kind of figuring those things out. I've had people, just to be hurtfully honest with me. I was working at a tech firm one time, a PR firm in New York one time. So the IM chat was up, and they didn't realize that I could see the IM chat from where I was, and they were talking about me. And I needed the money, so I had to sit there and just pretend, but, like, again, I take those lessons and I run with them, and they hurt like crap during that time. But I'm glad that I went through it, because it prepared me for, my next journey, or what not to do and what to do. So I appreciate my past, good and bad.
Yeah, I mean, it's important to have some failures, isn't it?
Oh, definitely, because, it teaches you what you need to do right, and then correcting yourself. I'm glad that a lot of my mistakes professionally were made in my 20s. So, a lot of my friends kind of went traditional paths, lawyers, engineers, doctors. So they never got to experience what I experienced, but that's what made me resilient and who I am today, and navigating those uncomfortable spaces. And so now when they approach me now, it's so easy to get through them. Like, okay, that doesn't bother me, or I don't care. I've been here before. I know this feeling, or I know what it feels like to get this result, and I'll make it through. I've been through it before.
Sherrica, I do this kind of with all the guests, since we're coming to the end of the session, I like to give you the parting shot.
Okay.
I probably haven't asked you everything. There's probably, I'm sure you've got some, especially based on your life experience, you've got to have some wisdom down deep that we hadn't talked about. So send us out with something spectacular.
Okay. And we kind of talked about it a little bit during our conversation. I would tell anyone, like, fearless, just go, run, jump, keep moving towards your definition of success, towards your greatness. And again, I can't say it enough. I think a lot of people, we talk about it, but it's hard to do. It's being authentic. Always question, why you do things. Am I doing it because am I trying to impress others, or am I doing things because I really want to? And it means something to me. So make this life meaningful. Be the 80-year-old person rocking in the in your chair on your porch, watching your grandkids, and have a smile on your face. And when you look back over your life, it's joyous with the failures and everything that included with it. So you're not saying, I wonder if, or you're trying to project on your grandkids what you didn't do. And so we're blessed to live in a world right now where everything is at our fingertips, and take advantage of it.
Okay. Well, Sherrica, it's been a pleasure having you on. It's amazing how quickly
I know
30 minutes goes. So glad you came on.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's been great having you here.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Great episode with Sherrica Davis-Hunt. Love her story of going through life, taking chances, but always moving forward. Episode 31 of Rocket Motivation is in the books. Next week's guest is Hope Rieger. She will tell her story of losing her son when he was shot in the chest, and how she turned her grief into a positive by starting Grief to Hope, a virtual peer group for those grieving over the loss of loved ones. Going to be a great episode. See you next week. Rocket Motivation partners with Gat Creek, one of America's premier wood furniture makers. Clean, timeless designs define the Gat Creek look. Their made-to-order furniture effortlessly connects with a range of styles from modern to traditional. Check out their full range of products at gatcreek.com. If you're interested in getting my book, Get Back Up, just go to Amazon and put in Get Back Up and my name, Rod Caden. It'll pop right up. I would love it if you would subscribe to the podcast and rate and review the show wherever you listen to your podcasts. I would really appreciate it if you'd share it with a friend. I would like as many people to hear my message as possible. Never give up and always get back up. And we'll see you next week.